Hi, I'm James from James Does Things, and in this video we're going to be talking about selling virtual items on eBay, specifically or particularly Roblox items. Now, although I'm going to be talking about those things specifically, you could actually apply most of the things I'm going to say in this video to just about any in-game virtual item, particularly with reference to selling it on eBay. So I'm by no means an expert in the legal side of things, particularly intellectual property, VeRO, all that kind of stuff. I've done some homework and I've had a look at the eBay T's and C's, and I've had a look at obviously the Roblox and the other game TBCs, T's and C's. But I'm not a legal expert, so please go and get your own legal advice. If you are a legal expert, I'd love to know what you think. Please drop me a comment or get in touch. And also, if you've fallen foul of VeRO or other legal things, please do let me know because I'd be interested to hear about. Okay, so just quickly for context, I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by the virtual items. We're going to be talking specifically about two different games within Roblox, and these are the games that I've had the most comments on. So these are Adopt Me, the pets in Adopt Me, and Pet Simulator X, so that's pets and diamonds. For the most part though, it's pets. It seems to be in both those games, essentially you collect pets and then they give you the ability to earn more money or resources or gain currency in the game, which then allows you to buy better pets and you get rare pets. So it's a bit like Pokemon but without the fighting. So some of the issues you can have with selling virtual items, specifically Roblox items, for Pet Simulator X and Adopt Me. So the items, the issues that certainly that I faced. Number one issue was scammers. Even though you're dealing with items that are only worth £1, anything between £1 and £5 in my case, scammers was the main issue. You get people, you'd send them something, and then they pretend they didn't get it, and there's no way essentially to prove that they didn't get it. You can prove you sent it, but that was the number one issue. So scammers. The next issue was people who didn't know what they were doing. So I'm going to generalize them as morons, which is probably a bit harsh. This can be it can be a mixture of things. It's people who didn't read the listing properly. Sometimes it's parents who don't understand it, who are buying it on behalf of a child who maybe doesn't know what they're asking for. They think they know what they want, but they don't actually know what they want. Sometimes it's just people who say play the game, but they don't know eBay and they don't understand how eBay works. But yeah, often it's people who don't read the listing, or people who like type their own name in wrong. So or they type their username in instead of their Roblox name, or vice versa, because there are two. There's a display name and a username and things like that. So even if you ask them to type both in as part of the instructions for buying the item, if I sold 10 things, nobody did it, or like one person did it. Usually I would get like 50% of the time I would get a name, and maybe it was the right one, maybe it wasn't, but nobody typed in both, except maybe one person. So yes, we've got scammers, morons. Morons are a big problem. And then after that, the other issues were things like people actually trying to shoot you down, so negative feedback. So even if you didn't get a return on the item, I got negative feedback from, I don't know if they were scammers or the next group of people we're going to talk about, like malicious buyers, but yeah, getting negative feedback was another issue. So getting essentially your account damaged in a way, because getting negative feedback is really frustrating on eBay. The next sort of group of people are literally malicious buyers. So it's people who are either I would say competitors, so people who are also selling on eBay, selling these items, or people who don't like real world trading. And real world trading is a very contentious issue in gaming. So you can't deny that there isn't a market for it, because basically with no demand there wouldn't be an industry, and there's a huge demand. Lots of people want to, literally, certainly in Pet Simulator X, like I think I've hatched one huge pet, honestly, by pure chance, and I put quite a lot of hours into that, particularly when my son was into it, and it's so difficult to get huge pets that people are willing to pay £5. If you work out how many hours I put into that game versus what I get paid as my hourly rate at work, like it'd be well worth me spending 30, 40, £50 on a pet compared to the time that I've spent on it to actually get a pet, and I think that applies to a lot of people. In, you know, if that game means something to you, then you'll pay the money. You know, honestly, that game doesn't really mean that much to me, other than the time I've sunk into it. I don't love it as much as, say, like Starfield just came out. I paid full price for that, like literally early release, and if you know what that is, then you'll know that's quite a lot of money. But that game means a lot to me, and I've had all of that company's games for a long time, so I know I'm going to get the money's worth out of it, so it means enough to me. And Pet Simulator and Adopt Me means a lot to a lot of people. They're collectible items, you know, they're virtual collectible items, but they mean a lot to a lot of people. So people are willing to pay. So you can't ignore the demand. You can't pretend it's just kind of evil sellers just doing it for greed, because it's actually, there's a huge demand there. However, even as a seller, you can't deny that it doesn't affect the games, because it does. It does change. It skews the economy massively in any game. And I used to play World of Warcraft when it was like the Burning Crusade and the Wrath of the Lich King, or whatever it was, the sort of the snowy one that came out, that expansion. So we're going back like 12, 13 years. I used to play that back in the day, and you know, there were always bots around offering me gold and that kind of thing, and it was a bit irritating. And it took me a long time to get into, like, depending on what server you were on, like the economies were massively skewed, particularly at the auction house. So you can't pretend that it doesn't affect people, because it does. And there are some people who just can't afford, so it does make it kind of pay to win potentially. But you can't pretend there isn't a demand for it. So, and there is, I think, some responsibility on the game developers to address that. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But anyway, I'd be interested to hear what you think. Do you think real world trading is like a menace, or do you think it's a valid thing? So drop me a comment. Let me know what you think. But essentially, slight tangent. There'll be some people who hate real world trading so much that they will either buy your thing, or they'll report your item, which is probably an easier thing to do, and they'll try and get you shut down. So I didn't have this happen to me for selling in-game items, but I have had it happen to me in the past. A long time ago, I used to buy things off AliExpress, or try and dropship them. Actually, no, I think when I did it, I was actually buying them, and I had one instance of getting my items reported, and I had one instance of my items getting VeRO'd, or the threat of VeRO, which is the first time I came into VeRO. I've never actually had an item VeRO'd, and we'll come on to that now. Before we dive into VeRO and things like that, because that's the legal side of this video, so we're getting into the nitty gritty. It's probably worth talking about the rules and the T's and C's for eBay and Roblox and for the games, and this is the thing that could apply to just about any game. So the terms and conditions for eBay for buying and selling virtual items, they have a category for it, and it is allowed, and so you can do it. It's not against their T's and C's. Once upon a time, it was kind of frowned upon, and you had to put them in classified listings. And then there is that rule still applies, but there are lots of exceptions now. And so essentially, they've made lots of categories available for people who sell basically in-game items for all the big online games, World of Warcraft. You know, basically anything. I don't think they name the game specifically, but any item that would that you can sell from any of the big multiplayer online games, essentially you can fit in one of their categories that they put there. So that's accounts, currency, items, you know, gold, whatever. It fits in there. So eBay are fine with it, provided you're allowed to sell them, and that's the kind of cop out. So eBay is saying that's fine. You can put whatever you like on, and we will take our 13% cut, no probs. Just you put whatever you want on. Just make sure you put it in the right category. But you have to be allowed to sell it, and that's how they get around it. So eBay are like, yeah, whatever, just put it on. But eBay also have this thing called VeRO, which is the Verified Rights Owner Program. So it's V small e big R O. So it's Verified Rights Owner Program, and it essentially encourages artists and copyright owners to to report people, and so to prevent. It was invented to stop counterfeit stuff, basically counterfeits, fakes, and just general copies of stuff being sold. So I suppose one example would be like Mickey Mouse t-shirts. I could go to Canva, draw Mickey Mouse, and then start selling t-shirts on there. That would get VeRO'd, that would get knocked down straight away. And then equally, if you go onto AliExpress, so I used to have my own, I used to have a card business, a Pokemon card and Magic the Gathering sort of trading card business, where I only sold legit cards. But there's lots of, certainly Pokemon cards and Yu-Gi-Oh cards available on AliExpress, and they're all fake. So again, it's to stop people selling things like that as legit. So it's kind of improves eBay's standing, because they're not selling, or they're trying to stop fake stuff. At least, and they're not kind of shafting genuine artists and copyright owners, because you could also apply it to anything. If you say if I was an artist and I started making digital prints, I did some artwork and I made a print of it, and then someone else could come along, I could sell it on my website or sell it on Etsy as a print, and then someone else could take that image off Pinterest or Instagram and start making t-shirts, and sell hundreds of t-shirts. And the VeRO program basically stops that. I don't know what powers it has, if there's any power to give that money to me, let's say, but essentially that's what it's for. However, this is being used to stop people from buying and selling, or certainly from selling virtual items from games. Because if you look in what's on VeRO, what it actually says is it's basically, if you own, it's kind of the legal thing of, do you own that character? So let's say I'm selling a pet from Pet Simulator. Do I own it? Because I didn't create it. It was drawn by someone in the game. It's their IP, it's their intellectual property. They came up with the huge space cat, or there's all sorts of weird and wonderful names. But basically, they came up with it. They drew the image. They drew the picture. So it's theirs. So I didn't create it, and I didn't really buy it. And I bet somewhere, if you look in Roblox, there'll be some terms and conditions somewhere that say, basically, we'll let you play with it, but you never actually own it. It's all ours, and we can take it back anytime we want. Somewhere, correct me if I'm wrong, legal experts, please let me know. My legal knowledge extends to, I'd say, offer and acceptance and that kind of thing. Contractually, I had to do some legal training in my work, but a very, very small amount. And that's basically my knowledge. So essentially, I think they offered to let you play with some stuff and you agree, and that's it, but you never actually own it. So I think it's grey at best, if not black and white in their favour. And it's not really, I don't think it's really the spirit that VeRO was meant, but perhaps it is. Because Roblox and the game publishers, so I think it's Uplift Games, and I can't remember what the other game maker's called, but those companies are all three of those companies are losing out when you buy a character or currency on eBay versus buying it through Roblox. Because let's say if you made a Roblox game, and in that game you had transactions like both of those games do, if I was to say, let's say I want to buy something and it costs me 1,000 Robux, I've got to go to the main Robux screen, spend £10 to get this 1,000 Robux, and then I've got to take those 1,000 Robux and I've got to spend them in the game. So Robux gets their £10, and then the game owner, if I spend that 1,000 Robux in their game, they probably get 700 of those in there, and 30% goes back to Roblox. So and eventually that 700 Robux that they got, they could cash that in for money. So I think they get something like £2 out of that, because you don't, the rate that I buy it at isn't the rate that they get paid it at. They get, if it's by 35% or something like that, or it's certainly a low amount, but it is a number. It's people get paid. There are teenagers who make Roblox games and get paid $10,000 a month, that kind of thing, because if they got good ones. So it is real numbers. It's not peanuts. So for them, particularly on a big scale, it is worth them shutting people down on eBay. And until today, because I got some messages, I didn't actually realise that VeRO was applicable to selling virtual items. But there are people telling me that they've been shut down on VeRO, and this one chap who sent me a message, he was saying, well, I've been shut down, but like all my items are gone and my eBay account's suspended, which is a big deal. But there are other people who are selling, no problem. So I don't. The emails he got, he hasn't shared the emails with me, but he said they were to do with VeRO. So it is a big deal. I have had my eBay account suspended in the past. It was a long time ago, and it wasn't actually for something I did wrong. It's a long story, and perhaps one day I'll make a video about it. But essentially, once you get your eBay account shut down, that's it. You can't just start a new one, because eBay track you, and eBay track everything. So eBay know your name, your address, your bank details, and also your computer IP, and even like your Windows details, your Windows ID details. So literally, if you get banned by eBay, it's not just a case of, you know, using a credit card instead of a debit card, or you know, using your wife's name and address and things like that. It's literally, you've got to like move house, change your name, different bank account, different computer, or even if you use an IP like a virtual private network, like a VPN, or IP proxies, things like that, to kind of change your computer's location, it flags that up, because it knows when you do that. Certainly, I've got one, and whenever you use that on Google, I only use it for very, very specific things, because if I just use it on day-to-day Googling or anything, the internet has a massive wobble, and it just says like, you look very suspicious, and you're, you know, why are you in Switzerland, or why, you know, but you're on a UK thing, you know, what are you doing? So if you try and make a new eBay account with that kind of thing, it's not going to like it. So there are ways around it, and I did look into it a long time ago, and it's way beyond me. It's really sophisticated how sneaky you need to be to get around eBay. And once upon a time you could buy new eBay accounts and things like that, but now I think that PayPal has kind of been decoupled from eBay. You can't do that anymore, not effectively anyway, not as a seller. So getting shut down on eBay is a big deal, and I don't want anyone to get shut down. Okay, so if you are going to sell virtual items on eBay, then there's a couple of things to bear in mind. So looking at the comments I've had on the previous video I made on this topic, and also looking at the other listings on eBay that people have made, that people who are currently selling virtual items, these are the things that I've noticed. So the first one is, do it as a private seller on the whole, particularly for pet simulators. So the people who I know who've been VeRO'd were either selling Pet Simulator or Adopt Me Pets. And those two things seem to have been clamped down on quite hard. So all the people I see, there are some people who clearly sell a lot of them, but they are private sellers, and I think one of them had like a rating of about 1,000, which, okay, I mean that's more than I've got at the moment, but I've got a relatively new account, so it's basically, certainly when you look at some of the gold sellers for World of Warcraft, RuneScape, things like that, Final Fantasy, their score, their eBay rating is enormous. It's in like the tens or hundreds of thousands. So most of, and their businesses as well. So that's slightly different. So I don't know if it's because you can't VeRO gold. You can't say, well, I've invented this gold, and like, well, no, you haven't. It's gold. Shut up. Maybe I don't know how does it work. I don't know how it works essentially. Perhaps you could say, well, this is World of Warcraft gold, then I'm Mr. World of Warcraft. So how about you get it VeRO'd off your platform? I don't know how it works. If you do know how it works, please let me know. So generally speaking, if you're going to sell Roblox items, then I would do it on a small scale, and I would do it as a private seller. You've got to put them in the right categories, definitely. I would say that's a classic way of upsetting eBay. I would advise not selling for big, like the really kind of expensive items. So if you've got some huge pets and you want to sell it for like 20, 50, £100, because some of them are really rare and really sort of sought after, you're asking to get scammed, really, because eBay's overwhelmingly in the buyer's corner when it comes to any disputes. because that's how their whole platform works, and I've said it on multiple videos. In the event that eBay can't tell who's lying, they'll always back the buyer. So when I used to sell Steam keys, anything over £10 was always bought by a scammer. Literally nobody sensible and honest bought anything over that much. I made lots and lots of transactions sort of below the £3 mark. So for £2.99, £1.99, that kind of thing, all went perfectly smoothly. Anything over a tenner, that was it. 100% scumbags and scammers. So that's something else. So sell the cheaper stuff. The other thing is, if you do select expensive stuff and you get scammed, that means eBay has to do some work. Either, if there's back and forth with messages and they have to check things, your account's going to attract attention. So even if nobody VeROs you, eBay, and the other thing that eBay can do, and this is why you don't want to do it as a business seller, because if you're a business seller, or if eBay just decide that you're selling like a business, they can say, right, you're behaving as a business, so show me your books, show me where you're getting your orders from, show me a wholesale docket, whatever, that says I bought 5 of these things. And of course you won't be able to, because unless you bought them off another website, which is against their, say if you went to player auctions and bought them and you kind of arbitraged them, then you're breaking the dropshipping rule, essentially, because you're buying from a retail site, potentially anyway, unless you bought it a long time ago. So, but generally speaking, you'll have created them, or you'll have traded for them in the game, and you can't show them a receipt. So they'll say, well, that's it, all your listings are gone, off you go. So eBay can use that as a way of, particularly if you attract too much attention, they will just bin you off. So they're the things to watch out for. And I would say, if you do have expensive items, I'd be tempted to sell them on player auctions, because at least that site, that they don't care. They're not interested what the T's and C's of anything is. They just want the money. So they're not gonna you're not gonna get booted off their platform as long as you do what you say you're gonna do. If you're an honest seller, you're fine, as far as I'm aware anyway. Again, if you've got more experience than me of player auctions, and if you've been scammed on player auctions, please let me know. I've only done a couple of transactions on there as a buyer, and they went very smoothly, so I can't really say anything bad about their site. But it is a tricky one. So I suppose ultimately my advice would be, maybe don't sell virtual items on eBay, because it's generally, if you just sell small things, you might be okay. In the video I made in the past about selling Roblox items, because I think it's partly because you're dealing with children, or parents of children, and neither of them understand really what they're buying. It opens the door for lots of confusion, and so that's how I got negative feedback, was because people didn't know what they were buying. And so there is that side of it. So there are games that sort of teenagers and people who in their 20s play, who actually have money, they're buying the thing for themselves, so you're less likely to get confusion there. But there's still issues. You could still potentially get VeRO'd. I don't know if you can VeRO on someone else's behalf, so I don't know if like an actual employee of, say, Blizzard has to come on and write a VeRO report for eBay for your World of Warcraft gold or something like that. I don't know if you can certainly report other people's items, but I don't know if you can VeRO them on other people's behalves, which would be the sort of the malicious competitor, or sort of white knight who doesn't like real world trading kind of side of things. So yeah, so that's the bottom line really, is maybe don't sell them anymore. I know I made a video about saying, oh, I sold them, but I got spanked. I don't think I made any money selling them, and I have no intention to sell them in the future. Okay, so based on everything we've been through, I would say my advice, if you actually want to make money from Roblox and Roblox items and things like that, my advice, and this is something I actually want to do in the future, is actually to try, instead of kind of going against the system and trying to sell these things on eBay, yes, you could sell them on player auctions, maybe, but you still run the risk of getting scammed potentially, or your account shut down for that game. So my advice would actually be, try making something in Roblox, because there are teenagers who make thousands and thousands of pounds or dollars a month from their creations on Roblox, and there's lots of ways of doing it as well. You can make games, you can make sort of t-shirt designs which are very simple. There's clothing which is a bit more advanced, and then there's UGC items where you have to learn Blender to do that, which is a free 3D software. But and then you have to apply and get accepted. So you have to make something pretty snazzy, send it in and say, look, this is what I can do. Are you going to let me make some stuff? But if you get accepted, that can be extremely lucrative. And at the moment, I believe they are accepting applications for that. But also, okay, you might say, well, I don't know how to use Blender. Like, I don't know how to use Blender, but I'm really interested in learning it. And let's say if you're like, I don't know, if you're watching this now, you're 15, 16, and in the UK, that would mean you still have a mandatory 2 years left of schooling. You can't leave. When I was a kid, you could leave school at 16. Now I think it's 18. They've changed it, and I think it's similar in other countries. Like literally, you could start learning Blender now, and you'd never have to get a proper job. Like, even if you don't do Roblox things, just learn Blender. That's like it's an industry skill. With Blender, you know, if you can learn that, and if you've got a job you don't like I'm seriously thinking about learning Blender, partly because I'd like to make things for Roblox, but also because you can make lots of other stuff as well. You can make, you know, things for a much wider audience. You can make 3D items, you can make art. The list's endless. Animation. So if you've got a job you don't like, and even if you've got that much spare time, like an hour a day, do some Blender tutorials. There's millions of them on eBay, and so I think that's the way to go, really. Even if you don't go down the Blender route and you just make clothing and games, because Roblox comes with its own editor, so you can make your own games. So that's the way I would do it, because I think once you've made stuff, essentially once you've made it once, but there's kind of no limit to how much money it can make as a digital item. So, compared to, say, selling that pet, like you either bought that pet or you've traded for it and you've got one pet, and then you sell that one pet and you got some money, and then it's like, oh, maybe you made a bit of profit if you bought it, but you still got to go and do it again. Whereas when you make something in Roblox, you've made it and that's it. It's made. Maybe you have to promote it, and it's not easy making stuff, but it's worth it, potentially. So I think that's the way I'm going to approach this in the future. And I'm thinking the way this channel's going to go, I might start moving down the route of making things rather than making things to sell, rather than just selling things, because I think one of the things I've learned is you can make money from anything nowadays. And it's a bit of an epiphany I had recently, in that, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Essentially, you can, some things make more money than other things, but you can make money, with the power of social media, things like Roblox, YouTube, pretty much whatever you do. If you know how to market it and know how to, basically, if you can get an audience, then you can make money at it. And I've kind of been going through all these kind of little cheesy side hustles like this one, trying to sell these game things, and then and I think my next video is going to be about botting. I also, and that's a different video altogether, but basically using bots to kind of grind out accounts and game items and things, not for Roblox, but for something else. And it's sold as a really kind of an ideal way of doing things. It's passive income, yay! It's not. It's not a scam, but it's not as good as, the grass is never as green as they say it's going to be. So I think I might actually just start making things for myself, not for anyone else. And if people like them, great. So I think that's actually the way to approach things. Maybe don't try, instead of looking at the short term, I can sell this for £5, and I could buy another one for £3 and I'll sell it for £5. Just think, well, I'm going to make some digital stuff, and once I've made it, it's made. It's just going to make me some money then after that. So I think that's the way to approach this from a mental point of view, is maybe look at the bigger picture, look at the long term, and say, well, instead of being on the eBay side of things and trying to dodge the rules and not get, fly below the radar, maybe I'll come at it from a completely different angle, and I'll just use eBay for, selling junk, and actually put some time and effort into learning a different set of skills which will last me a lifetime. So yeah, a bit of an odd way to end a video, but I hope you found this useful. And please send me some comments. Leave some comments below. Let me know what's happened with you selling items. Do you, have you sold items and been really successful? Have you sold items and been boosted off eBay? Are you a legal expert? Do you think I'm talking rubbish, or do you think I've nailed it with some of the legal things? I'm open to constructive criticism, so please do let me have some. And then also, do you make things for Roblox? Have you made money the right way, let's call it, either with Roblox or Blender. So yeah, well, thanks for watching, and yeah, please check out my next video. In fact, if you want to check out the other video, then I might put a link for that somewhere. Okay, thanks, bye bye.